Dr. Barry, licensed psychologist, and here I share legal and entertainment news from a psychological perspective. And today we are going to talk about the Menendez brothers. There was a new show that came out on Netflix, and I have some thoughts. And thank you to everybody that took a look at the show. It's very triggering. So if you have not watched this one, there is a new documentary that's coming out, and I think this documentary will probably do a better job covering what actually happened. There are major issues that I have with things and perspectives that were portrayed in the show, and we're just gonna jump right into it. All right. Let me know your questions as we go. My disclaimer is that, of course, this is for educational purposes only. And while I am a psychologist, I am not their psychologist. And so I can in no way diagnose, or this isn't a psychological evaluation. And then I did just want to give a content warning that this will discuss child SA. I actually am ending this presentation with talking about common myths with male survivors of SA. And for anybody that doesn't know, the YouTubes does not like certain words, okay? And so the first thing, because in episode 1, I was so mad at Dr. Oziel. And I think the writers in the show took some creative liberty with some things, but I have what really happened. And so I want to talk about what should have happened in this case if a client does come and report that they've committed a crime, because really what happened in that session is Erik was trying to get help with his SI thoughts, with his thoughts of towards self, and just so happened to kind of confess along the way. And the doctor handled it, and I don't have to say in my opinion, because the California board agreed that it was unethical. And this is not a documentary, okay? So I'm going to go back to the pictures, okay? Because these are the actors. Uh there is there is a new series coming out soon that's actually going to cover um I think it's more of a documentary style, because the creative director, I don't know, but like Ryan Murphy and Ian Brennan, those are the individuals that were behind the series. And this is part 2 because the Dahmer story was part 1, and I did not watch the Dahmer story. And honestly, going into watching the series, I was not aware of the controversy with the series. And I went in with just kind of like a blank slate, but I needed to go back to confirm, wait a minute, did this really happen? Because in my opinion, Lyle is portrayed as like a psychopath with no remorse. The actor that played him did a phenomenal job. So in this show, the acting is phenomenal, but these are real people's lives. And the Ryan Murphy did not reach out to the Menendez brothers for their side or perspective. Now, there are so many movies, documentaries. There are Barbara Walters did an interview with them. There Court TV streamed, well, not streamed, I think it was on YouTube, I don't know, but Court TV was the one that broadcast this trial. Yeah, I don't think YouTube existed. Oh, I'm that old. Oh, I'm that old. So I don't think YouTube was even a thing, but Court TV is the one that had the footage. I have the link to the actual court footage if you wanted to check out some of the testimony. It is very triggering, okay? Especially Lyle's. And I watched Dr. G Explains and the Behavior Panel. Those are 2 groups that I really respect. And they both said that Erik and Lyle's testimony, the portions that they evaluated and reviewed, that they seemed to be telling the truth. There were not deception indicators. Like, it seemed like they had clearly been victims of trauma. Now, can you be a victim of a trauma and also have motivation because of money? Was there that fear that they were going to get written out of the will? Like, did that play a role? I don't know. I don't know. And I also just want to talk about the fact that with the way that things are portrayed, I don't think it fully addresses the shame that can come with male SA, because there seemed to be some implications that there was incestuous relationship between the brothers, and there wasn't. Like, into, like, adulthood, like, there wasn't. It seemed to imply that Eric was homosexual, and he said that he is not. And to me, it was problematic that the show portrayed certain things in that way. But I th because these are real people's lives. And so to me, feeling like they were, and to me, I think the show I watched, the series, played up some of that mocking and things that happened. And so, um I agree. I think if this case was tried today, because the prosecutor did not believe that males could be SA'd, because it's almost like she thought you had to have a vagina to be a victim, and that's not true. That is not true. And so there was a lot of, you know, misogyny, yeah, just homophobic. Like, there were a lot of things that happened back then, that I do hope that things would be handled in a different way now, because in their second trial, they were not able to introduce evidence related to the history of SA by Jose, the father. And in this time, I think when he was around 14 or 15 years old, there was a member of the band Menudo. Yes, there was a member of that band. I want to say his name was Roy. He came out and said that Jose, the father of the Menendez brothers, that he essayed him. And so, like, he was clearly a predator. And the fact that the show even left it out there that that could be false, I personally had an issue with that. And so, Monsters, the Eric and Lyle Menendez story, closely represents, oh, and so I copied this from Screen Rant. Okay, so these are the words from Screen Rant. From the real true crime story, it adapts, but also ends up portraying other aspects of the real case with inaccuracies and fact checking errors. Created by Ryan Murphy and Ian Brennan, the Netflix true crime show serves as a follow up to Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story. Soon after its release, the show was a hit on Netflix, but there have been issues. And so I did want to say, so Eric's aunt released a story, and this was posted by Eric's wife, Tammy. I believe, yes. Yes. I want to say that's Eric's wife. I could be wrong, but I believe it is. Family's response. We are virtually the entire extended family of Eric and Lyle Menendez. We are 24 strong, and today we want the world to know we support Eric and Lyle. We individually and collectively pray for their release after being imprisoned for 35 years. We know them, love them, and want them home with us. Ryan Murphy's Monsters, the Lyle and Eric Menendez story, is a phobic, gross, oh, I should have read some of these words. Anarchistic, serial episodic nightmare that is not only riddled with mistruths and outright falsehoods, but ignores the most recent exculpatory revelations. Our family has been victimized by this grotesque shock-a-drama. Murphy claims he spent years researching the case, but in the end, relied on debunked Dominique Dunn, the pro prosecution hack. Those are their words, not mine, to justify his slander against us and never spoke to us. The character assassination of Lyle and of Eric and Lyle, specifically Lyle. Like the portrayal of Lyle is, to me, Eric in the show comes off as like a wounded soul, because there's even an episode where that's the title of the episode, but Lyle is portrayed completely like it was not. The show portrayed him in a certain way, who are our nephews and cousins under the guise of a storytelling narrative is repulsive. We know these men, we grew up with them since they were boys, we love them, and to this day, no, to this very day, we are close to them. We also know what went on in their home and the unimaginably turbulent lives they have endured. Several of us were eyewitnesses to many atrocities one should never have to bear witness to. It is sad that Ryan Murphy, Netflix, and all others involved in this series do not have an understanding of the impact of years of physical, emotional, and essay. Perhaps after all, Monsters is all about Ryan Murphy. And that was that was that was wow. I'm gonna get back to that presentation. Yes. So if I hadn't seen, so I was not aware of some of the controversy before I watched it. And I didn't closely follow that trial, but once I went back and looked at a lot of things, to me, certain things were amplified, but it was for dramatic, it was to tell a good story, but these are real people's lives. And there was similar backlash with Dahmer, where the victim, who they recreated her courtroom scene and didn't even talk to her. Like, she wasn't aware that that was going to be done, and it reopened all of those wounds. And it's just so easy to like reach out, hey, this is a thing, and it's just so horrific. Um, the way Lyle was portrayed was, and so I had to go back and look at other people's perspectives and go back and look at, like, was it just me? Like, was I the only one that kinda got this feeling from the show? And the actor that played Eric actually met with Eric Menendez and Lyle, and I think about 28 other inmates, incarcerated people at the prison that they're at, along with Kim Kardashian and I think someone else, because they're calling for reform for the places that hold people, prisons, jails, to have more of a community feel like Norway. Because right now, what's supposed to be a rehabilitative place really just focuses on punishment. And punishment and rehab are really difficult in that, like, in an environment where you are just a number, you can only come out of your cell for this period of time. There's no grass, there are no green areas. And so that actor is calling for Eric, the actor that played Eric Menendez, is calling for their case to be reopened and has really pioneered and really connected with them. The actor that played Lyle is taking more of just like I played him and I've disconnected, and he wasn't interested in meeting him in real life or any of those things. And it is what it is. All right. So let's get back to the presentation. All right. So Eric Menendez also released a statement that said, and he has not seen the show. He likely heard about the portrayals and heard about what happened, and he released a statement. I believed we had moved beyond the lies and ruinous character portrayals of Lyle, creating a caricature of Lyle rooted in horrible and blatant lies rampant in the show. I can only believe they were done so on purpose. It is with a heavy heart that I say I believe Ryan Murphy cannot be this naive and inaccurate about the facts of our lives so as to do this without bad intent. That's cool. It is sad for me to know that Netflix's dishonest portrayal of the tragedy surrounding our crime have taken the painful truths several missteps. I'm sorry, have taken the painful truth several steps backward, back through time to an era when the prosecution built a narrative on a belief system that males were not essayed and that males experienced our trauma differently than women. Those awful lies have been disrupted and exposed by countless brave individuals over the last 2 decades who have broken through their personal shame and bravery who through their personal shame and bravery have spoken out. So now Murphy shapes his horrible narrative through vile and appalling character portrayals of Lyle and of me and disheartening slander. Is the truth not enough? Let the truth stand as the truth. How demoralizing to know that one man with power can undermine decades of progress and shedding light on childhood trauma. Violence is never an answer, never a solution, and is always tragic. As much as I hope it is never forgotten that violence against children creates 100 horrendous and silent crime scenes, darkly shadowed behind glitter and glamour, and rarely exposed until tragedy penetrates everyone involved. To all those who have reached out and supported me, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm gonna come back to the comments. That statement was very, very powerful, and I am because I did want to talk about the doctor, and so we're gonna take a little break and talk about the doctor, Doctor Oziel, who was the real life psychologist that did start meeting with them after you know Erik took the fall for Lyle's behavior, and, but it was weird that, like, the dad was there the whole time. Dad seemed to be controlling things, and if but I think dad was also the one paying, and this doctor, it's my understanding at that time, he was under investigation already for some boundary violations, and yes, Rosie O'Donnell also came out in support of them as well, and I think she's spoken against the series too. And so if you have not watched the series, I wish it was just like this wasn't like a true story. Does that because I think the series was done well, but it's not accurate at all, and the people whose lives it's supposed to be about have said this causes us harm. And so that's why I wanted to point it out. There are a few deep dives that I've linked down in the description, and it's my yeah, and and so we will we will kind of go from there. Ah, someone said, I minored in legal studies, by the way, and even watching a law show that's obviously not entirely accurate, you can get the gist of how the legal system works. That's very true. All right. All right. So let's get back to this part. Doctor. So I was so mad, y'all. Like I was like this Dr. Oziel was the reason I decided to even cover this because it is just so bad. Now, the portrayal in the show. So it's eventually my goal. I would like to consult with shows about like what therapy should look like. But I think they were purposely trying to make him look inept and they made him look like the worst therapist ever, and, like, he did some things wrong, and we're gonna talk about it. So, according to references that I have linked, down in the description and also, at the end of this, Dr. Oziel had been accused by a state panel of breaking confidentiality rules and being intimate with female patients. He surrendered his license to the California Department of Consumer Affairs Board of Psychology in 1997. That's the same time this trial, I think it was the same time that the trial was going on. As part of the deal, Oziel admitted no wrongdoing. He agreed to the arrangement because he no longer lived in California at the time and was not practicing as a psychologist. But it's my understanding that he does these like retreats. It's also my understanding he might have changed his name from like Jerome to Jerry. Like there's like I don't know if that's true. I saw that online somewhere. Like I think it was in one of the articles that I have linked, and that he like works with couples. Mm, ugh, ugh. But what should have happened, so if I was meeting with a client and they come in and they say they're feeling like harming themselves, and then they start to describe the PTS, the trauma of like, I'm being haunted by what I did, um, because it astonished me that the doctor never recommended that Erik be evaluated for harm towards himself. Like, did you make sure that there weren't any more weapons in the home? Like did you do any, and I don't know what he did. I don't know what he did. I don't know what the real person did. It sounded like, from my research of what happened in real life, that um Erik came in and asked for the session because he was having thoughts of 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 um of harm towards self. And eventually he was feeling like the doctor wasn't getting it, and so he disclosed what he did, what him and his brother did. And it's my understanding at the end of the session, because in the show, the doctor calls his girlfriend in the middle of the session, and it's my understanding that that happened at the end. But then he tries to get, like, them to talk about it more, but it's so that he can blackmail them later, if they ever try to harm him, which is just mind-boggling. And the real guy really did send his wife and children out. Like he sent them off somewhere, and he supposedly, so according to his testimony, because his testimony is on court TV and Menendez trials and other YouTube channels too. But in his testimony, he talks about how he stayed with his girlfriend who was also a former patient. So Miss Smith, real person, was his former patient, and she reported what, because he had talked with her about the tapes and about what they had confessed to, and when he dumped her, she went to the police. And then Erik and Lyle were arrested. And now that is a heavy thing as a therapist to hold on to. And if something like that happened to me, I would reach out to my liability insurance, because I'm talking to a lawyer, and there's privilege when you're talking to a lawyer. So I would reach out to my liability company and say, "Hey, this is what's happening." And they're probably going to say, "You need to consult with another psychologist in your area, document that in the client's chart, and also document talking with liability, and then figure out where you kind of go from there." If the client has made, because the doctor alleges that Lyle threatened him, and uh who knows, but and that's why the doctor then did all those things. In the show, the doctor tries to go into business with them, like, he wants them to invest in a business that he has. I don't know if that happened in real life. I wouldn't doubt it if it did. Like, it was so, so bad. The lack of ethics was just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And because first, his mistress is a former patient that he didn't give. Let me see what it is in California. How long, psychologist, before? uh, oh, is it 2 years? Oh, so APA is only 2 years? That's so. My answer is never. You should never ever be intimate with a former client, because it's never ever. I think board of social work is never ever. in my mind, it should be never ever. But each state has their rules for how long you have to wait. And because what can happen is when the relationship doesn't work, they can go to your ethics board. Like, even if you wait the 2 years, they can still go and say, I had abandonment issues and that would blah, 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 so the answer is never ever. Never ever. Like, do not find significant others in your therapy clients. It's not okay. It's just not okay. But that had me wanting to pull my hair out. And so the picture on the left is the actor and the picture on the right is the real Dr. O'Neill. Um it was it was bad. It was really, really bad. Because what Dr. Oziel, sorry, if I said O'Neill, I meant Oziel. What Dr. Oziel should have done if he did feel that he was at all at risk would be, I now have to refer you to somebody else to treat you. I'm not comfortable. And then possibly do some type of protective order, or but you don't, or depending on what your liability insurance said, if you did need to notify the police, but that's very rare. Like, normally for a situation like this, if there isn't imminent risk or harm to anyone else, you would not you wouldn't you wouldn't do anything. And so and it was really his ex-girl, his mistress, that got mad and reported everything. And he lost his license. And so the issues that came up for me were confidentiality, relationships with current or former clients, the fact that there was that dual relationship, and a judge ruled that because Lyle had threatened Dr. Oziel, that privilege was broken and the tapes were admissible. The real Dr. Oziel did tape the confession, and 2 of those tapes came into the trial. Ridiculous. Excuse me. Absolutely ridiculous. All right. So now we are going to shift over to talking about stigma and shame, because this is something that I think is really important, because there are a lot of myths when it comes to this topic. And I like to share accurate information. So SA can happen to anyone, no matter their age, sexual orientation, or gender identity. Men and boys who have been SA'd may have many of the same feelings or reactions as other survivors, but they also face some additional challenges that are unique to that type of harm because of social attitudes and stereotypes about men and masculinity. And in the United States, 1 in 6. So there is a website called 1in6.org, where it has resources and supports for male survivors. And uh all right. And then I wanted to talk about their myths and facts, because one of the biggest myths is that boys can't be SA'd. And that's the fact is, men and boys can be survivors of this type of harm. And it has nothing to do with how masculine or strong they are. Myth number 2 is, often the survivor or other people might think it was their fault if they got aroused. And if a boy liked the attention they were getting or were sexually aroused during the harm, uh, that is a involuntary reaction to harm, and it's still harm because it was manipulation and harm. It just was. And it was in no way their responsibility or fault. Sometimes there's a myth that SA is less harmful to boys than it is to girls, and they've done research, and that is not true. The reactions can be different, but they are equally harmful. Equally harmful. There's also a myth that only gay men SA, and that's not true. Boys can be essayed by both straight and gay men and women, and that it's often the result of harmful behavior that is taking advantage of the child's vulnerability and in no way related to the sexual orientation of the harmful person. And what I mean by that is that I don't even like some people just want to like they have this sadistic thing where they want like it might not even be about like pleasure or gratify like it might be that sadistic cuz like it can be really harmful. And so a person might identify as straight and then be harmful towards yeah, okay. And so because sometimes people get stuck on that part and they are harmful, they are not safe. And that is it's definitely a power thing. Exactly. 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 SA is not about the S. It's not. It's not. And eh, like you're so but there are really people that think this part is true. Therapists cannot record a session without the client's knowledge. So, they were recorded and they were not aware that they were being recorded, which is like a whole other conversation. So, that was like depending on the state and the laws, that could be a violation as well. Some states require like two-party consent. Clients should not record the therapist without their knowledge or consent, and therapists should not record clients. There are like things like forensic evaluations where they tell them, "Hey, just a heads up, this session is going to be recorded. This is just for me to get notes from later." The court might subpoena it and parts, and it might be used. But yeah. And so I and because everything was so popular, I'm pretty sure Dr. Oziel will never try to be a therapist again. Pretty sure. Pretty sure. Oh, wait a minute. And then I had a few more myths and facts. Um there's okay. So, uh, another myth is that being a male survivor means you're gay, and that's not. Whether a person is gay, straight, bisexual, their sexual orientation is not the result of SA. Now, SA can be confusing, and and the show did kind of show parts of that, but it seemed to imply that Erik was and Erik has come out and said that he is like he's heterosexual, he's not gay. And a lot of people also struggle with how an individual can continue to be um to be harmed when they can physically fight back. But what groomers do is they start so young, so the harm towards Erik started so young that he was broken, and I don't think he ever felt he could stand up or say no to his father. And, there are parts of the show, like, I fast forwarded through certain through certain parts and certain portions. Episode 5 is probably one of the most emotionally intense for this type of testimony because the actor gives one take of just him describing what happened, and it is powerful. It is really powerful. But it is sad. It is yeah. So, I definitely watched something funny afterwards, so I made sure to watch the show early in the day, and then I think I watched, The Circle after that because I 'cause I'm a big Circle fan. Tonight, Josh Johnson has a new set coming out, and so I'm gonna cleanse my palate after the debate with Josh Johnson's set. All right. Another myth is that males harmed by females got lucky, and that is it's harmful. And so back in the day, like some guys used to like brag, like, "Oh yeah, when I was 12 years old, like this adult woman, like," and now we know that is harmful, that is not okay, and that adults should not be engaging in that type of activity with children. They just shouldn't. And I have other videos that cover that type of harm and all of that. There's also a myth that male survivors will harm others. And and while there is a percentage of people that become perpetrators that were harmed themselves, if I say 1 in 6 males are harmed, out of that, an even smaller percentage are the ones that become harmful towards somebody else. The thing with children is if they don't understand that what happened to them was wrong, or if there is some issues, sometimes children can be at risk of harming other children, and we call that being sexually reactive. Because they often don't call like a child engaging in that behavior a like an offender. They normally call them reactive. Because in every case I've ever worked, they've always had their own history of pretty significant harm, but that we needed to do some really intensive therapy, often residential. So for people that have been like, if it's to the point where they've harmed other people, that they normally are getting inpatient residential care. So the impact of male SA, it can increase anxiety, depression, PTSD, flashbacks, and eating disorders is a really common one. And the show, and I don't know if Eric in real life had that, but in the show, Eric was really concerned with his body. They can avoid people. So this is the second one here is a PTSD symptom, avoiding people or places that remind you of the harm, concerns or questions about orientation, fear of the worst happening, and having a sense of foreshortened future. So child survivors of any type of harm, that's neglect, any type of harm, can sometimes have where it's hard to look a year down the road, 5 years down the road, where there can be this, shortened future. And so, often, part of my work with clients is trying to help them look beyond their nose. That's what I call it, because some of my survivors, they can only see, like, they can't look to the future. And so we often try to build hope. We try to build some of those skills and tools to be able to extend that. Often they'll feel like less of a man or that they no longer have control over their body. They might feel on edge, unable to relax, have difficulty sleeping, a sense of blame or shame over not being able to stop it. And it was not their fault, especially if they experienced an erection or finished. And because it's like that's an involuntary action. It wasn't something that they had any control over. Withdrawal from relationships or friendships, a worry about disclosing for fear of judgment. And so SA and orientation, again, just wanted to restate that it's in no way related to that, to the orientation of the perpetrator or the survivor. And so often questions can come up, which is understandable, but and once again, that those physiological responses are involuntary and the individual didn't have control over that. Right? There can also be this secrecy that happens, especially with harm towards men and boys. And that's why I really wanted, with talking about the show, I really wanted to talk about this part, because I think this is what shining a light and talking about it, making sure to break some of those myths. Because there might be somebody that watches this and thought, oh, well, I thought only this person, or because a lot of times ridiculous things get spread that are just very, very harmful. Okay. So how to support male survivors. Um, and so one of the biggest things that they fear is judgment or not being believed. And for many male survivors, stereotypes about masculinity can make it hard to disclose to friends, family, or people in their community. They may also face uh, challenges believing that what happened to them was harmful and wrong. And so just today, Well, we can talk about Diddy real quick because there was another press conference where there are 120 people, 60 women and 60 men that are alleging that Diddy drugged, essayed, that there was harm towards them. Some, okay, so trigger warnings, all the trigger warnings. There are some that report harm as early as 9 years old. Um, there's some 15. I think they said about 25 out of the 120. Yes. Yeah. 25 of the 120 were minors when it started. And Diddy had this extra thing of being somebody who was popular. The 9-year-old, it was a audition, and he wanted to get into, or I don't know if it was a he or she. The individual wanted to get into entertainment, and Diddy, in my opinion, the because these are allegations, in my opinion, if those allegations are true, he abused his power. And with everything coming forward, I truly believe that everything they're saying is completely true, just based on the reports, based on everything that's coming out. And the lawyer that came forward said many of these people are now coming forward because Diddy is incarcerated and they feel safe being able to come forward now. And so I agree. They can't all be lying. And I'm glad that they're gonna get to share their story. They're not doing a class action lawsuit, so each one of these are gonna be filed separately. Each one of these are gonna be an individual case, and, like, this is this is really hard. And so, they admit that they did this to their parents. In their second trial, the judge did not allow them to bring up the SA as as a mitigating factor. And so that's where I said they two things can be true at the same time. An individual can be a victim of SA and also have concerns about being, and I don't know all the reasons why they did what they did. I don't know any of that. They would like another trial, because they were found guilty of first degree and given life without the possibility of parole. And, so it is it is it is. And so, alright. I like Cassie, like, the bravery that she showed, and, um, being a mom, I know that had to be hard, but I think coming forward helped protect her kids in a way, helped protect other kids, helps protect future people, because he did not stop. He was, according to the allegations, he was still doing all these things. He was still having all these parties, and then, like, we will see who else gets charges, because I think one of his sons has already been charged in one lawsuit, not charged, has already had allegations in one lawsuit. We'll see what happens down the road. I don't think Diddy had healthy views or ideas about sex and intimacy. Like, it seemed like it was about power and control, and it is it is very troubling, because the lawyer that did the press conference today said they want to go after the people that were in the room and did not stop it as well. And when you're a bystander, I don't know if you knew, there's something called bystander effect, where the more people that see a crime, the less likely somebody is to intervene. So they've done research studies, and if I'm in a parking lot and I'm the only person there and I see something happening, I'm more likely to call the police, because if I don't do it, nobody will. But if something is happening in a parking lot and there are 50 people there, people are less likely to call, because there's this diffusion of responsibility, where they're thinking, "Oh, they'll call. or they'll call. Like, so that's why one of the first things you do in a critical incident is you say, "You call 911." If you've ever done CPR training, they always say, look at somebody and say, "You call 911." Because the more people observe something, the less likely that it is that somebody will, like, call the police. Now, people now record, which I think is weird. Like, please call, but, like, yeah, it's a whole thing. Um, we learned about bystander effect. I think it was in social psychology. I wanna say it was social psychology. I really loved social psychology. And I'm saying I loved it, but, like, because some of this stuff is fun to learn about, but, it's also more helpful, if somebody is being essayed to say, like, "They stole my baby," like, people are more likely to help. I don't know why people shut down when they see, like, yeah, when they see that type of harm. I don't know why, but yeah. The bystander effect is the reason why we have 911 services. Oh, cool. I don't know. That makes sense to have, like, the centralized place that could help dispatch and all of that. Sure. I don't know. Alright. So, what you can do if a friend comes to you, number 1, listen. Many people in crisis feel as though no one understands and will take them seriously. Show them that that they matter by giving them your undivided attention. It's hard for many survivors to disclose, especially for fear of some of those stereotypes. Validate their feelings. So I don't want to say things like, "It'll get better, snap out of it. You shouldn't feel so bad." Those are all those silver lining statements that invalidate people's experience. And one of the sometimes one of the hardest things to do is to just not say anything at all. And just, if they're open to a hug, just like giving them a hug, to say something like, "I'm here for you." They recommended, I believe you." That sounds like something that was really hard to go through. So those were some of the statements that were recommended by them. Express concern. Tell them, "I care for you. I'm here for you." Do not ask about the details. And that's what I thought the therapist got wrong. If a client came and told me that they did the thing and they were feeling like harming themselves, I wouldn't make them go into all the details of what they did. Like, no, like, I don't, like, right now, your safety is my first priority, and then, like, are you gonna do it again? Like, that's like, I'm gonna assess, like, are you safe? Are you going to harm yourself or somebody else? But, like, why do I need all the details of what you did? I don't I don't need those details, but that's just me. Um Even if you are curious about what happened and feel that you want to fully understand it, avoid asking for details, because it's just, you don't want them opening that box, because talking about it can make people feel 20 times worse. And you never know if they have the resources and tools to deal with it once they leave your presence. And so, um, in therapy, my very first session with people, I let them know, I wanna get a general idea of what's happened, but I'm not gonna have them go into any of the details. Like, all, like, if they do have a history of childhood trauma, I'm not gonna go through, like, all the specifics. I'm just gonna ask them, like, a few, like, if they're open to just answering a few questions, but that we're not gonna dive into everything today, because opening those doors can sometimes make people feel worse. I wanna provide appropriate resources and supports. All right. So here are some resources that can help. There is onein6.org. I have a lot of UK viewers, and so SARAC.org.uk. That is an organization. It's SA, the R word advice center, and they support Burton, Lichfield. I'm bad with names. Tamworth, I'm so bad with names. South Derbyshire, and some other places. I'm sorry. But I have the link down in the description. Netflix has Wanna Talk About It, and they have resources there. And then rain.org also has resources too. If you are gonna look for therapy and to talk about things, making sure that the individual has experience working with trauma survivors, and, like, what's their approach? What therapeutic interventions. So, are they skilled in EMDR? Are they skilled in, like, what trauma interventions do they use in working with people? Because not every therapist is skilled in working with complex trauma or working with especially, like, childhood developmental trauma. Here are some additional resources. Call Me Karis was another video. She did a reaction to to the show, and then Stutterbox was the one who was, like, hating Ryan Murphy. He had some thoughts. And then Dr. G Explains did a video, reviewing some of their testimony, and the behavior panel did a video as well. And there are some additional resources down in the description. Let me get back to the comments, see if there's anything that I've missed. Yeah, and so you don't have to watch it. Like, you really like, it was intense. It was really intense. The show will probably win some awards because for some reason we like that. I don't know. Especially the actor that played Erik did a phenomenal job. We didn't even talk about the mom. Oh my gosh. The way the mom is portrayed, and I don't know if that's how she really was. She comes off, in my opinion, very neglectful and self-centered. They also kind of showed her ranting with her therapist, talking about like children or parasites and like are the bane of my existence. They're why I but I think if she was aware that the harm was happening, because there were also allegations that the mom was harmful towards them too. And at minimum, she was aware of the dad taking naked pictures of them. They allege that she would be like undressed and they were old, not like 2 or 3 years old and mom is naked, but like they were old and mom would and so there were a lot of allegations towards mom as well. Um, it seemed like the father was the one that was the most domineering, controlling, and he had this idea of success. And what they say is that they had fear that he would one day harm them to keep his secret from anybody ever knowing. And he had goals of running for Senate and for like going off and doing all these things. And and so their fear of him, that's where it would have been up to a jury to determine if like their fear was valid and justified. And so I leave it in the jury's hand. Juries do hard work. They have to sit through everything. They have to apply the law. And that's where understanding like what the law says when it comes to things like this. And I'm not a lawyer. I'm a psychologist, and that's what we talk about. But um so often didn't they over oh they made her the show made her like the worst. And I'm sure she wasn't great, but like it was it was a lot for Kitty. It was a lot. Oh, wait a minute. A cousin testified that Kitty wouldn't let them go downstairs when Jose was taking showers with. Oh, wow. Oh, yeah, she definitely knew. Ugh, that's that is. And and that's where in the show they talked about Kitty being codependent and unable to function without him. The fact that the father was having affairs and was off doing all these other things, she seemed miserable, and it was just that's how it was all portrayed in the show. Whew, it was a lot. Please watch something funny, watch something like lighthearted. Um, I don't know that Jin Soto knew, but she trusted Stefan way too much. None of our There's no door in my house that has, like, its own separate lock like that. Like, the inside of Stefan's door is yuck, yuck. And, my heart breaks for the roommates that were, like, right next door. I did listen to the testimony, and this is from the Jennifer Soto no, not Maddie Madeline Soto case. Jen Soto is the mom. She has not been arrested. Um, I did watch the interview with, Stephen Stern's parents over on Hidden True Crime. I think I shared it here on my community tab, and, they admitted, like, they don't think Jen was fully aware, they don't think she knew, but there were but I'm a psychologist and I look for these signs, there were weird things, and I would never send my child so if for some reason my husband was sleeping in the guest room, I would never send or not my husband, if I had like there was a stepfather, I guess, or 'cause it's my husband. But, um, like, it was the signs were all there. She couldn't sleep alone. She was likely experiencing significant trauma and PTSD, and that's what a lot of those fears and not wanting to be alone was what was probably like, and it's just so, so, so problematic. In listening to the interview, um, the parents tried to clear some things up. Uh, it sounds like they want to blame traumatic brain injury on what Stefan did, and I am not an expert in that case. I have worked with people with traumatic brain injury, and they might be more likely to do something impulsive. What he was doing was calculated and planned, and in my personal, just my thoughts, TBI doesn't make you do stuff like that. Like that is ugh, like that's a whole other thing. And so I don't I don't think that the home seemed sexually repressed. And what I mean by that is the way the mom talked about his like magazines, like the and like her and dad sleep in separate rooms. And I don't know that there were healthy views and healthy ideas of sex and sexuality discussed. And just so problematic. So, so, so problematic. Um, one of somebody talked about how Stefan was in message boards and that he seemed to be trying to communicate younger and younger and younger. And mm, just super, super problematic, super problematic. Another very difficult case. As I will cover it, I don't think it's going to trial for a long time. I don't think it's going to go to trial for a while. Whenever it does go to trial, I will definitely cover it. Um, Maddie was so smart, and um, I'm thankful. So I watched some of Grizzly True Crimes coverage, and I'm glad that she's not sharing some of the because I guess Maddie's drawn pictures where you can tell by looking at the pictures, you could that something was what was happening. And now kids draw phallic things, especially boys. Does that make sense? So I have all kinds of rockets. Like kids, things sometimes look like penises. Like it's just, but there is a way that things look when there's been harm. And often play therapists, art therapists, there are often people that can kind of take a look. You watch the play, like oh my, I have so many my son loved drawing rockets, and I'm just like somebody I saw this picture of, at Disney, they have this, like, honey pot, like a fountain refill station, and it looks like a big penis. And it wasn't meant to, but it just does, and so, um, got called into school for things your son drew. My son, he, some project, I don't remember what it was. Oh, because our school does school counseling. All the kids, it's every in kindergarten, it was every I think it was 2 times a month in kindergarten. For 1st grade, it was the same. For 2nd grade, it's every 8 days. Every 8 school days, they have oh, no, no, more than, 'cause they have library and then they have school counseling. So I think they have it once a month in 2nd grade. But they did something about your feelings, and my kid said he was feeling scared, and I was like, what was going on?" He was like, "I just wanted to put I was feeling scared." I was like, "Dude, like, you might have to go talk," which is fine, like, if you need to go talk to the counselor, if you're actually feeling scared, please write that you're feeling scared, but, like, because they were teaching them zones of what is it? It's the emotion zones, your red zone, yellow, blue, green, and for some reason, my kid thought he was scared, and I was like, "Could you have put calm? Could you have put something else?" And he's just like, But I was scared." But he wasn't scared. My kid, and so it is what it is. Thank y'all so much for being here and for watching with me. I am taking a new approach with comments. And so if somebody comments something that is just ridiculous. So I got a comment the other day because I did a video with these headphones in, and somebody commented, they were like, "You have almost 28,000 subs and you don't have a real mic." And I'm like, but I'm like, in the video, you can see my mic. So I just commented. I was like, so the output is coming to the headphone, like, but the input is the mic. Like the output is from the laptop is coming here. And so I I have a mic. Somebody commented something else. I forgot what it was. It was super, super silly. Normally something I would just delete, but I was like, I'll engage. I'll comment. And I said, have a good day. Hey mama. Was just like why? Why do people need to do that? But people do. It is what it is. And so I'm starting a new thing. And it's just like, okay, we can we can say that. And so um because the person was like, your sound is awful. Like you need to upgrade your mic. And I was like, but I have the same mic that CoffeeZilla uses. Like I specifically, like I was like, ooh, what mic does CoffeeZilla use? And it was only like 100. Like it wasn't like it was in my budget. I was like, ooh, I can have the same mic as CoffeeZilla. Zones of regulation, exactly. You pick your zone. But, yeah, as a school social worker, many of my kids associate me with sadness because they talk about their feelings, and sadness is normal, and my kid so sometimes my kid does feel scared. My kid is wired to be a little bit more anxious, kinda like, "Mama, shh, we work through it, we talk back to our worry, we do all the things." And so if he was scared, because 'cause we've been talking about shyness lately, because he doesn't like talking to people and doing stuff like that. And so we've been, talking about approaching that and dealing with that, and so that's what I thought it was, and he was just like, "No, I just had to write something down, and that's what I wrote down." Okay. Imma go feed my kiddo. I hope y'all have a good day. Bye.